Hello, welcome to episode 7. Woo, 7. Can you believe it? Of 5D Tea Time. I'm your co-host, Lindsay Love, and this is
Kristen.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us for this episode. So the number 7, Kristen can tell you a little bit better about this, but kind of represents God in a way. So we thought it might be appropriate to discuss a little bit about God today. So Kristen sent me a video over the weekend in regards to a place somewhere out west. Maybe we thought maybe Arizona, Nevada. We need to actually look it up on a map, but it's called Slab City. And there's a man there named Leonard Knight. Not exactly sure his age, but he's an older man who's been residing there for quite some time. And he has devoted his life to the creation of this incredible mountain made of adobe and rock and paint and hay bales, straw bales. And it's painted beautifully. It's devoted completely to God. And he considers God love, which is really quite beautiful. But his days are filled with working on the expansion of this beautiful mountain in the morning. It's painted all of these vibrant colors and has flowers and God is love written all over it. We'll share the link to his video below because it's fascinating. It's so beautiful. But he wakes up in the morning and he devotes his time to the creation of the expansion of this beautiful gift that he's created. And then throughout the day, people come from all over the world to visit this place. And so he gives tours and he tells people about it in the most beautiful animated light. It's just love is pouring from this man. And, you can see God within him, or I can anyway, which is just, it's the ideal way of being in my mind. So I would like to share a quote before we get started from him. He says, God is universal. He loves everybody in the whole world. So don't get complicated with love. Let's keep it simple. Let's keep it really simple. And I found this quote. So it's actually at the end of the video, right before the end, if you choose to watch the video in the link. And I just found this quote, so it just resonated so deeply with my belief systems and my soul. And so it kind of brought up the inspiration for Kristen and I for this conversation of what is God? And so Kristen, let's just kick it off with that simple question. What is God to you?
It is the question. It is simple, yet it seems such a big topic. Yeah, and I just love with the number 7, like seventh heaven, we've heard about that, or the 7 days of the week, the 7 gates of heaven, the 7 chakras along the spinal column. The 7 is kind of that ascension point of like our consciousness connecting to God. So it is kind of that merging point where the form moves into more of the celestial space, the higher realms, the God realms. So I just wanted to tap into that a bit because God is, everywhere and inside of everything. And this symbology of 7 is when we see 7s, that is a link to the higher self, the higher God self. So goodness, what is God to me? Is that the question?
Yeah, it's a big one. It's a big one. I mean, it's a big one for anyone. That it's a lot to process. Even if you've lived an entire life, I'm sure at 90, it's still a big question. Maybe even bigger then than now. I don't know.
I mean, I just love what he says. God is love, and love is the binding force that connects this universe. It's like the fabric that connects every cell and atom and particle. And anything that's disconnected is just love turned upside down, but it's still love. It's just forgotten itself, you know, so nothing can't not be God. Nothing can't not be God. I mean, double negative there, sorry. But
It seemed appropriate in that circumstance. So I fully support that double negative.
oh gosh. What English is my first and only language. It's still hard to speak sometimes. Yet, you know, God is a very active, it's an activity. God is alive. God is not a stagnant thing and like creation is done and that's just it. It is a very living, evolving, and it's God is like, God is love, and it's the relationship to it too. Like for me, God is a relationship with life. God is my relationship with life. God is like the yoking of the love between myself and my dog and myself and the sun and the grass under my feet and the earth and minerals and the particles in the air and you now. And you know, God is like this relationship. It's an activity. And it grows. It's like the more I tend to that relationship, the more it feeds and directs and protects and projects through me. So it's, God is truth, and there's no contradiction in it because it is everything. And in a sense, like everything that's not real disappears. So then it also feels like nothing. It feels like everything and nothing, because in a sense, when we're relating on that level, we unify with life in such a way that the self starts to disappear a bit and like dissolve. Yet there's still an activity of life passing through us, and we enact that activity. It's just like there's less of an identification with the temporal, because that relationship with God, the eternal, is the real identity. So it's always been here and it always will be here. And it's everything. And we are that. So it's like everything in the sense of the eternal, and it's like the temporal. I mean, it's in the temporal too, but the temporal, it changes, it fades, it passes. So I don't know. Maybe I explained it in a very complicated way, but it's, God is love, and that's the yoke, the essence that unites life.
I love that. No, it's beautiful. I mean, the word that kept coming up in my mind while you were talking, because you were inspiring, you know, this thought in me of God is connection. God is not only love, but God is connection. So there can be this existence of God in everything and everyone. But if we choose to disconnect from it, then yes, it exists, but it seems like there's a choice point within an individual whether to first acknowledge the existence of what they believe to be God, which can be an infinite number of ways of looking at it, ultimately, is the way I see it. So but there has to be that free will choice point of connecting to the fact that there is the existence of God, of great spirit, of source, of the cosmos, of, on and on and on, Buddha, Krishna, on and on and on. But first there has to be the acknowledgement, and then there has to be the choice and the willingness to connect with God. And so I don't know why connection was coming up, that word was coming up so strongly, because we really do have a choice as beings on this earthly plane of whether if we choose, we want to believe in God, even if you and I believe it exists in everything, and I believe that at the depths of my soul, but others may not, so it's interesting to to have not only the love, God is love, but also God is connection. And there's that free will, I think we have to recognize and make that connection. And then the stronger the connection is, the more powerful the presence becomes in our lives. And I feel like the more devotion that we have, the more benefits that we can reap from it. So I don't know. I feel like it's an interesting topic. But the other piece of his quote that really just grabbed onto me was, "It's not complicated, it's simple. It's really simple. Let's keep it simple." And so that really ignited a lot of thought in me of how we can tend to want to disagree about what God is, right? And this is not only currently, but this has been happening for eons, since the beginning existence of this thought process. There has been disagreement on what God looks like, what God acts like, what God believes, how we should be in the face of God, or how we should react, so on and so forth. And it just has felt incredibly complicated. I mean, we've fought wars over it. People have died over this. And so to me, growing up as a young girl, I never quite understood why one belief system was correct and the others weren't necessarily. So a lot of my life personally has been traveling and exploring other cultures as an anthropologist, and especially indigenous cultures, and learning about different creation stories and belief systems regarding God. And so it's just very interesting that there are an infinite amount of ways to believe. And in that way, it seemingly can be complex, but it is quite simple when it comes back to love. If God is love, God is connection, ultimately it's simple. And there's not a right or wrong. There's not a one exact way to believe. It's about love, and it's about keeping it simple. And with the simplicity of it, I believe there's ultimately an acceptance of how others view God, and how their belief systems as well. Do you have anything you want to add on to that thought process?
Yeah, well, just for me, it's so personal, and it's such a relationship, it's a direct relationship. There's no intermediary. We don't need the religion or the doctrine or the dogma, all these man-made components of how to follow and pray and how to do it, a formula for how to do it. It's the humility and the what I would say, like, earnestness of the heart, wanting to connect is all you need. The earnestness, like the true, like, desire of the soul to really connect with that force of light and love to be the guidance. For me, it's it's a relationship. It's a direct relationship. And, a lot of religions have done a lot of harm in the way we perceive God and the way we can connect with God. And yeah, I mean, the wars, that have been fought over, these different concepts, have really tainted a lot of people and have moved more towards, materialism and scientism to answer questions, because they're so turned off by religion, because it's like, oh, this God talk is just, is the root of so much of the strife and pain on the planet. And historically that is true. But religions were almost used, and there's a purity in the essence of the teachings that do come through. Yet the systems as a whole have been distorted, have distorted the message. There's aspects of it that are very pure and clear and direct, and then there's aspects that have really harnessed the earnestness and the purity of the soul for agendas, so yeah, when we talk about God, we're not talking about religion. We're talking about direct connection, direct relationship to your birthright, which is that reconnection with God's source of your creation, of your soul's creation. So yeah, that's what comes to mind. I mean, it's very, when I first learned to pray was kind of in the bellows of darkness, when I was in my youth, and that bellow, really dropped me to my knees, literally. And I started to directly connect my soul to the stars, to the light. And I was making pacts and contracts that I would follow the way of the light, and that I would walk through and manage all fear and doors that were, or obstacles. I would manage the fear if the guidance would continue to show me the way. And it's been a direct relationship with that force ever since. And that force gets deeper and the light grows, and it's it's the spring of life. God is the source of life, the spring of life, the one that it all emanates from and through. And it's inside of every cell of our bodies. So it's very intimate. It's a very intimate connection. God isn't outside of us. It's very much atomically in the pulse of cells, in our DNA. It's inside of us. So yeah, connection, relationship, and choice, like you were saying, just choosing, the active choice. I mean, if there is free will, this would be it. Would be like, are we going to choose light and love? And it comes into like, let's say there's like a conflict that just like a family member triggers you, and how quick and easy it is to go into defense and to go into kind of the battle, fighting and protecting, your belief of whatever it is. In a sense, God is kind of a dissolution too. There's like it's the presence of love, and like truly embodying that presence of love, the battle dissolves too. like it disarms the defenses and the offenses. So it's a strengthening, it's a system of strengthening our power to love in face of challenge, adversity, stress. It's that power to like keep the light switch turned on to the light. And it's challenging. I mean, it's not like an easy path, it's simple, and it's not easy to remember, because it's almost like everything about this realm, and even in our human instincts says protect, like, defend, protect.
Right, defend, exactly.
And it's we're hardwired to that. So it is there's an alchemy, there is an inner alchemy. There's like a biological, bio-spiritual journey that happens with the body and the spirit kind of combining forces. It's a rebirth through the fire of spirit that like happens and shifts the system so that we can remember, to anchor that love in those moments. It's challenging to choose it,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, choosing love always is, it's a practice. Get up every day and you practice it. And even when you think you've practiced it more than enough and you've got it dialed in, usually something comes up to challenge it and realize, oh, I need to practice that more. I need to practice it more.
And we love even the journey of practices, because it's like, oh, thank you for giving me these teachings so I can practice loving more. It's like, oh, okay, like we even bless the mistakes, or whatever they are.
Exactly.
Because it's all helping strengthen our relationship to the primary source. The only thing that we serve, or we can serve this world, and it's very disappointing and it always will be, because that's
a great point.
It's of the substance of this that has, distortion and agenda and all these things, it's like, oh, when it's like completely connected when we are completely like soul connected into that primary source, the God force of love as our guidance, as our reference point, we're growing in the right direction then, even with the mistakes and all that. It's not perfect just because it's like, oh, I chose it once, okay, but once you choose it, then it sets a lot of things in motion in our lives, for sure. There's an acceleration of really being a vessel, really being an earth angel for that force. It's an awesome responsibility.
Yeah, that's so true. And the other word that's coming up, I just keep getting words that I'm not, but truth is another one, I think, directly connected to God here in the mix. I hear you say relationship, which is so powerful, and connection, which is similar to relationship, but a bit different. Truth, love, simplicity in a way. So I heard you say the words distortion, and maybe it was manipulation. I can't remember. But can you kind of, because that's when the word truth popped up for me, because it's the truth. God is truth ultimately. What do you mean by distortion and manipulation?
Well, there are forces within us, there's, I think we have to be aware of human nature too, and how powerful that is. Instinct, and we're kind of hardwired in certain ways. So the overactivity of the mind manipulates and distorts. It can't know the full truth. The heart can. So when the projection's coming from the mind, until the mind becomes fully yoked and united with the heart, and then it can project and hold important thoughts through the heart. There is a battle of the hemispheres of the brain. It's like right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, it's like, and we're just like bobbleheads, we're just like up in our head. Up, we think, it all exists up here.
Yeah. From there. Yeah.
Yeah. So the distortions and manipulations come from within. And there's a, I mean, I don't know if I want to go into the outer world too much, but there are, anti-Christ forces. We didn't talk about Christ consciousness, but Christ consciousness is a lineage of light that runs through our sun and our sun's all the way to source. So it's this direct link we have, and we're not talking about Jesus, the one who embodied the Christ consciousness, or Krishna and Buddha, the ones who have embodied these emanations, these pulsations of light, and many whose names we don't know. But the most recent embodied avatar that we are aware of is Jesus. And so yeah, the Christ consciousness is our birthright also to connect with, and that is our direct link into the light and heart of God. And that way, that path has been shown to us, and it is the way of love. It is the way of, like, it's radical love. I mean, love is such a radical thing in this world because of the forces of manipulation and distortion. Want to keep us very distracted and very busy in consuming this realm, and
daily life cycle.
And it distracts us in such a way that we spend all of our precious time, our precious life force energy, just doing that activity of being a part of the system, right? That consumes and consumes and consumes and satisfies cravings, but they're only cravings. They can never satisfy what this lineage of light back to God can satisfy. And it's a dangerous trap, because this world of consumption siphons our time, our precious life. And so by the end of our life, when we realize, none of that matters, I can't take any of that with me, then you're set up for another reincarnation cycle, right? Because it's incomplete. Your karmas haven't been, right? So it's like, I need another mom to jump into so I can, continue on my evolutionary cycle. So what we're talking about with, the God path it is truly a path of liberation, and really utilizing the time that we have to cultivate that relationship. It's so revolutionary and very countercultural and all the things that I love, because it is kind of anti-society. It's not anti, but it's very it's not feeding, the parasitic systems. It's feeding your eternal path that, this is one life. This is a tiny snapshot. It's a big life, though. This is a very, very big life that we're all in right now. So we have the power to really
Mhm.
close the loop and come back to the holy O source of the God and
Totally.
God, you know,
Yeah.
and and yeah, complete a big karmic cycle that we've been in.
Mhm.
And these are all big words. These are terminologies I'm so familiar with, but I know there's a lot to unpack in some of this language that might be new for some. And always happy to do that. Yeah, further. That
Yeah. The next thought that's kind of coming up right now is, 5D and this topic. So it's like, okay, well, 5D is a realm of love, right? So it seems to me, and I would love your opinion on this, but my thought process on a personal level, in our evolution of moving through dimensions ultimately, um, is this the only way to the 5D is to connect more with God and ultimately more with love and embody love as much as we potentially can. So that is the journey we're on. That's also the journey you're talking about via reincarnation. When we get caught in these distortions and manipulations of, we think life is all about the next job or the job and making the cash flow and having beautiful things and um, so on and so forth. Although those are beautiful parts of life, like you said at the end, we can't take those things with us. So the God element, the love element, I mean, I I've listened to a lot of people talk about on their deathbed, what their regrets were. And it's always, I wish I would have spent a lot more time with my family and connected to God and the things with spend a lot more time focusing on my relationships,
yeah.
connect, love, relationships,
Yeah.
God.
Mhm.
That's what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting that 5D time is ultimately, that's what it's about, is really acknowledging what are our priorities in life. And if our priorities are ultimately to know God as well as we can, and to love as much as we possibly can, and to um, focus on our connections and our relationships, which God exists within all of them, then that is the practice, that is the journey, and in order to move dimensionally to the fifth dimension.
Mhm.
Kristen, thoughts?
The shortcut is love. I mean, that's the fifth. That's the fifth. I mean, true love, like not in like the concept of like, it's like the passion of love,
Mm,
like the true, just like almost like orgasmic quality of love. Like it's ecstasy, it's bliss, it's not a concept from the mind. It is an like a bursting of energy that flows through the heart. And so the cultivation and the choice, it might come from the mind for a while, just the practice to like get, to choose it, right? But it is,
right. Yes, absolutely.
yeah, I mean, the mind is a beautiful thing too, we're not, when I say, oh, mind, you're bad, not at all. No, it's not all, like love embraces everything, it encompasses everything. It's just, the mind, yeah, needs the reins, what are the, if like the mind is like the reins, what's holding the reins? The heart, and what's it
Mhm.
connected to? God, it's like, all right, once it's all like really connected, then the mind can work for us, in ways that will help really move the God force through us to really support people and the systems here to transition to
Mhm.
the new earth, which is
Yeah.
yeah, just the loving, generous, support and reconnection with the cosmos, you know, like just it. And this is the thing, the 5D is, this happens from within us, like the connection to the cosmos, like we are the satellites, we are the stargates, we are the planets. Like God is in us. This is not something that is outside.
Yeah.
The 5D is the inner technology. The human vehicle is the most advanced technology in the universe. The most advanced technology. We have all the elements here. And we won't go into the 12-strand DNA here, but our angelic template, our soul's template has 12 strands of DNA. There is all this junk DNA, you know, that they claim. This is DNA that's turned off, that the 5D will turn on. And so just to talk, the 5th dimension is that it is the direct experiential connection to God awakening inside of you, where you can see and smell and taste and touch and see clairvoyantly through things. There's a lot of clairsentience, clairvoyance, you know, all the clear essences of the senses. You know, we move through the 5 senses and beyond them to sense even the extrasensory perception of what, because we're only seeing a tiny fraction of the visible spectrum, you know, or the visible spectrum, what we see is like 5% of the spectrum of light, right? Or less. I think it might be less than 5%. So yeah, as we tune in and people are like, oh, it's boring. It's like, there is nothing
The most
boring.
exciting thing in the world.
Not consciousness. Like it is, like we can't even perceive it because we can't perceive it until it really allow it to be cultivated in us. And then it's like, boom, it turns on and things get so dimensionally rich and things we haven't even known were possible become possible. And that is an infinite path of growth. There's no endpoint to God. We don't put limits on God. There's no, you know, there's limits in this finite world, this 3rd dimension as we see it and perceive it. All sorts of limits, you know?
Yeah.
And transaction. Yeah. What'd you say?
I said there's no limit to God. You're right.
Yeah. That's not dull. It's not boring at all. It's the most exciting, enlivening, life-giving, life-thriving thing we can choose. And I know you and I are here to like just support people so much in choosing that.
Yeah.
So
that's exactly right. It's exactly right. It's the best word, or it's the best life passion ever.
Totally.
All right, girl. Think about time to wrap it up. Any closing thoughts? Any last thoughts?
Just so grateful, you know? Yeah. So grateful for this moment and this connection and this conversation that we have, like a space to share this and explore it. And this conversation feels like, you know, maybe the heart of all the conversations we'll share. You know, it really is about that orientation towards love.
The heart of the conversations, love. Yes, exactly. And that's the foundation of it all. And it all blossoms from there.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank Leonard Knight for this inspiration for this video. We're going to drop that link to that video in the description box. So if y'all are interested, it's kind of brilliant. I mean, in my eyes, just beautifully brilliant, simply brilliant. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, share, comment if inspired. I'd love to hear your thoughts on God. And that's all for now. We'll see you next time. Much love.
Love.
Mhm.
Yeah.